Hey, this is Karen, Coach's Corner Chats, and today I have Michael Radlbeck. Michael or Mike, give us a little insight onto where you're at, what you're up to, and we'll rock and roll.
Cool stuff. So I live in Connecticut, so kind of close to University of Connecticut, if that's a reference point for anyone. Right now, I teach middle school physical education, and I'm a high school soccer coach at varsity level, and then I also coach club soccer on the side in the off season. So a little bit about how I got here is grew up in Connecticut as well. Very small high school, so we never really had tryouts. We kind of just showed up for the first day of practice. We probably had about 30 kids come, and we divvied them up, year in varsity, year on JV, and we kind of got on with things. There was never any cuts. We were never enough of a school to have that luxury. So we weren't the most competitive. The funny story I usually lead in to describe how uncompetitive we were is my first year I played both varsity and JV, and the varsity team went 0-16. And when I was in eighth grade the year before that, they also went 0-16 that year before. So those of you counting along at home, that's a whopping 0-32. And then we show up. We had a JV game the next day after the last varsity game, and I go to the home field and spray painted on the field as 0-32 by our rivals. They were sure to let us know that they wrote it in there. So that was my introduction to high school soccer, but played club as well. So towards the older ages of my high school career, I was exposed to some better coaching in my town soccer, as well as even at the club when I was younger. I didn't have a great soccer mind as a mentor. I had some great people who cared for me and loved me, and were great coaches and truly did the best they could, but wasn't really exposed to that higher level coaching until my later high school years. So played soccer at Eastern Connecticut State University Division III school, and that's really where I got exposed to the game tactically, and I grew a lot even away from the soccer side, just as a person. I was lucky to have a great coach to lead us, who taught us a lot about holding each other and ourselves accountable, how to not make excuses, how to grow as people, how to grow up. So I was very lucky to have that foundation in college. There was much more competitive soccer. We went to 4 NCAA tournament appearances, 3 conference championships, and then we actually did get an at-large bid one year. I believe it was the first year in our program. So that was a big deal for us. But I just love that experience, and it's something I fall back on a lot. I really enjoyed my time there, and I think I did make the most out of it. So that was the high school and then college experience.
So when you were at the what were some of the issues that caused you all to go 0-32? Now that you kind of look back on it, I mean, I know one might be talent, but
Yeah.
was there more to it than just the fact that maybe the quality of player was not there?
Quality of player, level of commitment. I've coached teams that weren't the most talented before, but they were committed,
Mhm.
and we didn't have that. And then the coaching, it's kind of like a small town, like triad or cycle. Like, you don't have talent, so therefore you don't attract a coach, to turn things around, and then people aren't committed. It kind of snowballs on itself.
Yeah.
Um, and then everyone's complacent when there's no tryouts. Everyone knows already they're going to make the team, so they don't need to
Yeah.
work that hard in preparation. So love the kids, made great friends, but didn't expose me to the highest level of playing there.
Did it improve throughout your high school career, like to your junior, senior year? What changed? Did something change a little bit maybe with the program? Because you must have done something right to have caught the eye of like being able to play at the next level.
Yeah, I think it was me and then a friend of mine. We were the only 2 to go on to play college soccer that I've played with. So for the 3 years above me and 3 years below me, I don't think anyone's gone on to play
Okay.
college soccer. Other people have in the past, of course, but in my immediate time. So we were best friends. We were into it. So we would kind of get people committed around us. And that's truly where I think I started, a coaching mentality or a leadership mentality, is because I had to tell Jake to mark that man, otherwise he wouldn't have known to do it.
Hmm.
And so me and my friend kind of getting people together, say, hey, let's go to the field, let's train for the season coming up. And then finally by our senior year, we did make the state tournament. We had a lot of ties. It still wasn't that pretty, but we made it there. So just through, I guess, leadership and wanting it and getting more committed, we were able to, get more competitive. We didn't win our conference or our state title, but still learned a lot.
I think it's cool though that you took what started off rough, losing 32 or even just when losing 16 in a season is not enjoyable. But to kind of keep like it would have been easy to be like, it is what we are and then chill. But it was cool to kind of like
Yeah.
you said, and it kind of spearheaded you, I think, to where you are now. So was there a point? At what point did you say, "Hey, I want to go to the next level and play at the college level"?
It was sometime in my club soccer career, so probably around like a sophomore in high school. I really kind of maybe verbalized it. So I knew I enjoyed the game. I knew I wanted to play as long as my career would allow me to. But then right around the sophomore year in high school, I got a little bit more focused. And so I actually wasn't heavily recruited, being at the small school didn't help, but I was kind of a big fish in a small pond for sure, very small
Mhm.
pond. And so a lot of people get recruited and they commit maybe a year in advance, mid-season during their high school season to go play in college. Um, I didn't know I was playing at my school until July, and then preseason started in August. So it was definitely a different route. But through some connections, I knew I wanted to go to Eastern Connecticut, and my club coach knew that coach, and I asked him to put in a good word for me. He came, watched me play, and then we talked it out from there, and luckily it worked out.
I'm finding the more I talk to people in this coaching kind of podcast journey, it's so much not almost what you know, but it's almost a lot of who you know. It's the networking and being able to like reach out um, and get some connections. And so um, you spoke really highly of your college coach. So what were some of the things that he did that you look at now when you do like your high school program? What are some of the things you took from what he did that you use now?
Um, Ton of things, man. Ton of things. Name's Greg DeVito, coaches at Eastern Connecticut State University. Still keep in touch. Great guy. And probably one of the biggest things is just the mentality. And he coaches, college kids. You're 18, 19, 20, and that's a time where you could not do certain things in the off season and just say, no, forget about it. He didn't let you do that. If he asked you to do something, you were going to do it, and you could even do it on time, but maybe it wasn't up to his standards. And so his level of standards were very high, especially being a college freshman. Your eyes kind of widen and you realize, oh, this is the level that he's going to make us rise to. And that's what it is. You either sink or swim. If you're 10 minutes early, you're late. You're 5 minutes late. Everywhere you be, if he says 7 o'clock, it's 6:45. And so part of that grit of getting things done and doing them the right way. And then, all the soccer stuff comes after that. Because if you can get that foundation and that culture down, you're gonna be pretty sad for a little bit. So that was one of the biggest things I think that sticks out.
That's so awesome because I was thinking the same thing as you were talking in my head. I was thinking he hasn't mentioned anything about, oh, he's really good with tactics or his technique
Yeah,
or our
yeah,
sessions were unreal. It was just like whatever we did was at a high level and the expectation. I'm assuming across the board, it didn't matter if you were the bench player or
no.
the stud, he was on your butt.
Oh yeah. Didn't matter who you were, didn't matter what you were doing. You could be setting up cones for him. You could be lining up goals. If you say oh, it's good enough. Nope, on the line, boom, you're running. It's not good enough. And that's the thing that sticks with players. It's not always the tactics and the X's O's. It's that grit, and I loved that culture, and I think know ahead of time that I would have loved it or what I was getting into. But once I got in that environment of performance and growth, I was all in for sure.
That that seems like it was almost like that piece of your high school experience that was missing that like
Mm,
push to like, okay, you guys are here, and like I know you play club, and I know you're really good here
yeah.
individually, but there wasn't someone there to push you, and it sounded like having him was the perfect complement for what you needed at that time.
Yeah, it really was. Absolutely.
That's awesome. So you leave college, and then do you go directly into the high school game as a coach?
Y- Yes and no, not to the position I'm at now. So, being a PE teacher, and I got big into the strength and conditioning when I was in college. And so I know I wanted to coach, and I didn't really know what route or avenue. So I was pretty well read. I would read up all the time, and one thing I kept reading on different blogs was that you got to pay your dues. You gotta put in the reps. You got to volunteer. You got to work for free. And so I went back to my old high school, and it was actually a different coach that I played for. And I introduced myself, and I'd say I'd like to coach your team in the summer. And so the summer is the season before the fall. We play in the fall in Connecticut. Um, as a way to prepare your team for the season, we would use a ball, and as well as do some conditioning. He was on board. I got another school actually to pay me, which was great. And so I had two soccer teams from different high schools that I could train in the summer, kind of experiment,
Yeah.
blend my two passions, soccer and strength and conditioning. Um, and I loved it. And then from there, I kind of went more to the strength and conditioning side, did a ton of personal training, big team groups, baseball teams, basketball teams for strength and conditioning, individual soccer training. And then I continued to play soccer. I did some soccer camps, but I was never fully in the high school game
Okay.
until about 3 years ago. And that's where I kind of realized I missed it. And I like the strength and conditioning thing, but it wasn't doing it for me.
Mhm.
It didn't get me going. And so I got back involved. I coached where I taught. So I teach at a middle school, and I coached that team for 2 years. And then this position opened up, and I had a lot of connections, kind of like you were saying, in the district. And I knew it was a very historic district to coach in. The coach I replaced is actually the most winningest coach in high school, Connecticut high school history, with 500 and I think 46 wins in his career. So he had been there a long time. Couldn't find anyone to say a bad thing about him. He's awesome, and I actually got to know him pretty well, which was cool. So that's kind of the post college story for you.
So, wow, I've got all kinds of interesting. So
Yeah, I know.
what
I just
that was awesome though. But so what so let me go back to the summer thing. So what was that experience like of working with those high school kids at that time? And what was it like having two different teams from different high schools? Did you end up having to like, man, this group's a little different than this, or
mm,
and what was that? I guess what's that? And I think it's awesome that you just said, "Hey, I'll do this for free. I'll just rock and roll and let's do this." It was cool that
yeah.
the other school paid you some. Uh, but what was that experience like when you just first started out?
It was awesome. So, I was fresh out of college. It's when you're, was so green and excited. And it worked out great. So I trained them twice a week, and I was at one school Monday, Wednesday, and then the other one Tuesday, Thursday. And I was in love. I could refine my sessions. I could do the sessions twice. Whatever I do on Monday, I'm going to tweak it for Tuesday to make it even better. It was really an ideal environment. And the two schools weren't too different. So I'm coaching my alma mater in high school, and so they were weak compared to other schools, but so was this one. I actually set up a scrimmage. They scrimmaged each other during the summer. It was a great experience. Um, and I brought some of that culture and that grit to my old high school, which was special for me because, they might not have had those opportunities. And they ended up doing pretty well that year. I think they did qualify for the state tournament um, that year, which they hadn't in a while. So for me, it was an ideal way to start my coaching career because I could refine the sessions and try out new
Yeah.
things. I could experiment.
I think that's cool too because there wasn't any like expectations on you. It wasn't like you were.
Yeah,
It was just like, look, I'm gonna give these guys an opportunity to hear a different voice. It gives me an opportunity to get some practice. It helps the coaches out because I know, like with our setup, we get 10 coaching days, quote unquote, with guys in the summer. So
sure.
we're always looking for other guys, coaches that want to come in and like, hey, we just take, I'll take 2 weeks and work with them, and we'll
Yeah,
focus on certain things. So that's I think that's awesome. Uh, the middle school, what was I've never coached I mean, I've coached club and from
Sure.
like, U9 on, but what was the middle school experience like, as you compare it maybe to your high school experience so far?
It's wild, man. So I teach middle school, so I do it every day.
I was gonna
And
say that's
they're
another thing too, because I'm a high school math teacher and
sure.
middle school scares me to death. They're a squirrely bunch.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was student teaching, I was right before I leave college. My mentor, my cooperating teacher, was this big football guy. Played football in college, pretty young at the time, and I was like, "Oh, there might be an opening in this middle school. I might apply for." He goes, "Middle school?" I didn't apply to one middle school, man. I would have rather not had a job. And
Yeah,
this is big, ex college football player. And I'm like, "Oh man, he doesn't want to teach middle school." So right then, I knew what I was getting into, um, but it's interesting. You just got to know what their minds like at that age. It's a mile a minute. It's puberty. So the middle school I was at is sixth grade to eighth grade, and so I got kids who are like 4 foot nothing, and then kids who are 6 foot one.
yeah.
Um, but the town I teach in is a soccer town, so they're pretty competitive. So even at that age, they could handle a good amount. They're clean on the ball. We outpossessed a lot of our teams while still creating attacks, and so it wasn't like I had to scale back a ton.
Mhm.
Um, but it was the perfect way to restart my coaching career after having a little bit of a hiatus from teams. And then I knew all the kids from class, and so it was cool to have them on both sides, in school, in class, and then on the team. And the guys you have on the team stand up a little bit straighter. They start following directions a little bit tighter when you're their coach too. So that part of it was also fun.
That's cool that you get that opportunity to kind of work with some of these kids outside the classroom,
Yeah.
and see them in like a different environment.
Is
Um,
that how it works for you too? Do you have any of your students
well, mine's
on the
mine's
team or
kind
in
of a
class?
so I teach at a school that's like 20 minutes away from the school that I coach at. Um,
Gotcha.
but I know a lot of the kids from like club, and what have you. So it is a cool dynamic. Um, but I could see, I think what I've noticed too, at least the gym side or physical education side, is that the high school, it's really hard to get them motivated to do like gym class. Like, man, I remember when I was
Yeah.
in class, we had, 2 weeks of tennis and we freaking just crushed tennis. And then it was 2 weeks of
Yeah.
basketball. You had to learn all the rules and everything about it. And now I could see where the middle school, I think, would be more enjoyable because they're still at that like they just love to just be active and be running around and stuff. So I
Yeah.
think that would be really cool,
Yeah.
um, on that side. So now the high school game, dude
We're
is
here.
500 plus games.
Yeah.
What did was there any hesitation at all to even go for this job because of that, or what? Or you were like, this
Yes and
is a
no.
challenge. Let's do this.
Yeah, I was up for the challenge. It was never a doubt in my mind to not apply. That was never going to stop me. But I knew enough people around, alumni, people from neighboring towns, so I had to lay the land. Um, and it was never an intimidating type thing. Once you got in there, the school is great, very welcoming and positive climate, and I kind of realized that as I was walking in, someone would greet me like a kid, some random student, like, said hello to me. And I was like, wow, like that wouldn't happen at the school I work at. Um, so I knew the vibe of the school was welcoming and pleasant. But long and the short of it is that when I was hired, they asked that coach, John Blomstrand, to stay on as my assistant coach. So the hiring process was mid COVID, and the hiring process was pretty extensive. I'll go back to that. But they knew I was a first time head varsity coach,
Hmm.
and they thought what better way to ease into my career and help not make some of the rookie mistakes is to have this amazing coach as my assistant. And so they brought it up to me, and at first they were very polite about it. And they're like, "Hey, we know it's going to be the Mike Radlbeck show, and we want it to be, but would you want consider this?" I was like, Yeah, that I was on board from Jump Street. That was never a thought in my mind that it had to be my way. So now we're very close. We keep in touch. The season ended in November, and we still talk about every 2 weeks. So very lucky to have that mentor.
What were what were some of the things that you feel like maybe that kind of stole from him, or what was maybe even in place that when you took it over, you're like, wow, I already know why this program was so successful.
They One of the things that was already um, going on is it's a soccer town. It's the history behind the club. They have past alumni who've played for E.O. Smith High School, and they've gone on to play in the MLS, and they've gone to play at University of Virginia and all these prestigious schools. So I knew they had it going on through and through. They were a soccer town. They're purebreds. Um, a bigger school, Class L, so almost one of the biggest conference or state, divisions
Hmm.
in Connecticut. So they were just a soccer town. Kids are growing up with the ball at their foot, which was huge. And then one of the biggest things I took away from him was his small sided games. The kids loved them, 3v3, and he would vary it and use different, I want to say like mindsets. So if we were playing a tough team coming up, he would play like 4v4, like no neutrals, small field. And he'd want them to feel that pressure the day before the game. Um, and if he knew, we could possess on this team and he wanted us to combine and knock passes frequently, we play, 3v3 plus one, two touch limit, make the field, a little bit bigger. So the ball's flowing and it's moving.
Huh.
And so he was a big advocate of small sided games.
So how long was he the head coach of E.O. Smith?
Think from 1970. So I think, was
Oh,
it that long? No. I think I have it down, written down somewhere, and
that's
I can
I was
pull it up, but
we're looking at you're looking at 40 plus years of coaching,
just about. I
somewhere
think like,
around there.
yeah,
And I
very close to that. I will get you that answer before we leave, but
That's impressive that to hear how he's manipulating and for a guy because you always hear like he's still coaches like he did in the 70s, and it's so cool
yeah,
to hear
yeah,
a guy like that has seems to have kind of gone with changed over the years and is still
yeah,
tweaking things. That's really freaking cool.
yeah. Very cool, man. He's got it going on. His name holds a lot of weight in Connecticut, and the way I think it was first explained to me is that he got the record for the most wins in Connecticut high school history, and he was inducted to the Hall of Fame for Connecticut, and that was 10 years ago. So he's had this, by a margin. Hasn't been, he didn't just pass someone and then retire off. He's been around. He's the real deal. So great guy too. Amazing, just humble, easy to talk to. Can't say enough good things about him.
That's awesome. That is so cool. Starting out to have someone like that in your corner. That's like a huge
Yeah,
asset. That's pretty sweet. Um,
yeah,
the strength and conditioning side. So that's something I've been doing a lot of kind of checking into as to what things can I do. So picking your brain, what things do you do with your group in terms of weight training? Are you guys doing lots of lifts? Is it box jumps? Is there
yeah.
lots of sprints? Is there plyometrics? What kind of things do you try to involve in yours, and how often you guys like now in the off season? What are the plans in terms of times we're in the gym, and I guess maybe what's your off season look like now?
Yeah.
With COVID's kind of messing things up, but
So really, I haven't been able to get my hands dirty and do the fun stuff, like you said, with the lifts and the plyos. So even before the season started, usually I could run conditioning in sessions. We couldn't do anything in person really. We could do virtual stuff, and so I only really sent them a program for conditioning, but I haven't got them in the weight room, and I did have some kids ask about it. But with COVID, we haven't been able to do anything, unfortunately. But we could talk, whatever you want, sets and reps, all that. For this last season, I pretty much put a premium on conditioning. Really, before the season, I wanted them to come in into the season in good shape, and then also nutrient timing was a big conversation we had. I found that we were lacking energy. We had a very winnable game, and we kind of showed up flat. And I went back to to the science and the literature about how you need to fuel and when you need to fuel themselves. But if you have more specific questions about kind of how you use box jumps and those things, yeah, fire away.
That'd be something I'm sure we can do. We'll figure out at some point. I'm really interested in this nutrient timing. So what does that mean? And what is that?
It,
So they
yes.
came out sluggish. So what things did you say, hey, this is what we need to start doing better with?
So we came out sluggish. The first thing I changed was our pre-game routine. And so I added in two things. And one of them was just a chant. I was like, neighboring towns do it. The U.S. men's national team have their, I believe chant. Like, we need to get hyped up. We need to get pumped up.
Yeah.
So we put in that, and what kids don't want to do that. So that was just fun. That was the easy one. You don't got to sell them on that. And then the other one was the nutrient timing. And so that's really about what to eat and when to eat it. And so, carbohydrates are going to be our main source of fuel for soccer, but it's also important when we eat those. We don't always want to eat them, round the clock. Some people might gain weight. There's a lot of heavier science into, carbohydrate sensitivity, and you want to restrict it at some points of the day, and then you want to carb load at other points of the day. So there's a ton of different ways to look at it. We kept it simple. And so a lot of teams have pasta parties, but we couldn't because of COVID.
Hmm.
And so we had a virtual pasta party. And so the next day I went out and I grabbed, I bought them all pasta, the boxes, and then like little mini sauce jars. And I'm like, guys, we're not making excuses. We could complain about how, oh, we would have more energy for have pasta parties. We're doing it tonight. We're jumping on a Zoom 8 o'clock. I'll see you there. Cook your pasta. Mom and dad ain't gonna cook it. I want you guys to cook it, and then bring your pasta to the Zoom. We'll eat together. So we got the carbs in us the night before. That was a big one. And then also the day of for the nutrient timing. So what the recommendations I gave them were to eat a decent sized meal. Preference matters. Some kids don't like to plan a full stomach, but a decent sized meal with a focus on carbohydrates about 4 hours before the game. And so you could start at 4.5 hours, finish by 4, and then we'd have another small snack an hour and 15 minutes before the game, and then Gatorade was optional during the game. And so by timing when we eat those carbohydrates, they're going to be even more effective. So that's the skinny on nutrient timing, and to get them to do it was another kind of level of leadership. And
Hmm.
I was on the captains. I was like, hey guys, I can tell everyone, it's all blue in the face, but they might not do it until they hear from you. And so at that point of the season, we were struggling. The captains were on board for anything, to help us to turn things around. So we got kids bringing snacks on the bus. We got them bringing pasta to lunch and school, and I did see an improvement in the energy in the game, which was a great sign.
I think that's so cool that you're giving them opportunities li- that they have to take care of. Like I'm sure you talk about sleep, hydration, all
Yeah,
those types of things that these kids just want to. Like even I talk to I have teenage boys and a teenage daughter, and they constantly eat like airheads and junk like
yeah,
that. And I'm like, and
yeah,
they're like, yeah, it doesn't bug me. I'm like, I know because you're 17 right now or 18, and your metabolism is ridiculously high right now. But
yeah.
it's not doing anything for you. That's why you're sluggish and then you stay up late and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's really cool that you made it something important for them, and then to involve them in the Zoom and stuff. I think that's a awesome idea, especially
Mm,
because I know with your background, like you're living that. Like I need to have my energy for teaching. I need my energy to coach.
yeah.
So guess what, boys? I'm eating similar stuff. Like I'm doing the carbs and stuff 4 hours before our game because I can't be walking on the sidelines like a zombie.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the Zoom pasta parties was just a fun team building thing. Then the goofballs come out and everyone's ragging on each other. So that was awesome.
I'm sure there were some that didn't cook the pasta correctly, or it was
Oh, I believe it.
bad.
They're eating it very al dente. It was very undercooked for some reason, not on purpose.
Like, Coach, at least I'm eating it of some sort of
Yeah,
pasta.
yeah,
That's awesome. I've never heard of nutrient timing.
yeah,
Always tell them like, and I've never been really specific. It's something I might tap into you a little bit more, even beyond this chat here, about some
for
ideas
sure.
for my guys because I know you need as much energy as possible in it. I'm sure. Do you guys play like a lot of games in a short period of time?
This year, yeah. So this year we had Tuesday, Thursday games, which a lot of coaches weren't happy about. So um, I think they did that to avoid football, and there's a lot of politics behind it. But COVID obviously made us change a lot, and that was a weird one. And then we some stretches we had I think like 5 games in like 12 days or something wild like that. So yeah, we had quick turnarounds for sure.
So, what were now that you look back on the first year, and I know COVID makes everything kind of take everything with a grain of salt, but what were some of the things that you look back and go, okay, I'm going to do something a little bit different? Like, what's one or two things that you've already thought I'm going to do something that was a little bit different this time? Or what do we need? Like that team building, that's awesome. I need to do more of that, or whatever.
Sure. Um, so one of the things I wanted to do more of was practices with freshmen, JV, and varsity all on the same field combined. Um, and we did some mirror sessions
Hmm.
in the beginning of the season because schedules lined up and it was a lot easier. And so we would do a session, and then the JV and freshmen were combined. They were here, and like they would come watch our demo, and then they would go do it, and then they would watch the next drill, and then they would do it. So we got some sense of it that way. But I was actually talking to a coach of mine, a friend of mine who I think is out in Oklahoma, and he says they do almost all of their practices combined, and they'll do like a circuit style. So that they'll have the freshman coach, they'll have JV coach and varsity coach, and they'll run 3 different stations, and then the varsity team stays together, and then they rotate to each station. So every coach coaches every level, at the drill they're at, and I'm sure they modify it for the different levels, and they have progressions and regressions. But I love that idea, and that's what I want to do more of. I want to have, freshmen be next to a senior in the warm up lines, which is something I didn't get to do as much this year. Especially couldn't do it this year, really, because the cohorts, we had groups of 10, we couldn't like mix. But yeah, that's one thing.
I love that idea because that's one that I look back and I felt like I put all my focus on my varsity group and I put a lot of energy into them and I let my
Yeah,
JV kind of play. And then I'm realizing now as I go to the off season and I look and I'm going, oh man, that's my future. I need
yeah,
3 or 4 of those dudes, 5 of those dudes to start to step up. So I need to,
yeah.
and I think that's awesome. Like you said, the other thing too is, so is it just you and the your one assistant or how many are on your staff?
So this is the first year that there was an assistant for the varsity team. So myself and then John Blomstrand was my assistant, and then we had the JV coach, and we did have a freshman coach. So we had 4 total for about 40 kids, and that's kind of run of the mill around here. Some places have 3 coaches. Some places there's a few places that have like 6 coaches on staff who have a very well run program. But that's how many we had for that.
Is being head coach at EO Smith, are you, is that kind of where you're at, or do you have any aspirations to maybe go back to the college level, or are you just kind of keeping your journey wide open?
I think this is where I'm at. The other entrepreneur side of me wants to say doors are always open and we're always keep things open, um, but this is where I'm at. I love it here. Like I said, it's a soccer town. As I meet kids' parents and people on the booster club side and people on other sides, this is I think where I'm at. This is where I want to hang my hat. So I'm happy to be here. I think I'm going to be here a while. Maybe not 40 years like Coach Blomstrand, but maybe 39.
You'll win just one less than he wins. Just
Out
like
of respect, of course.
that's right. That's right.
No, I'm not catching him. I don't think many people are. There's one person who might be able to in Connecticut right now, but that record's pretty safe.
So, in your experience in Connecticut, what's the soccer level of Connecticut soccer? It sounds like E.O. Smith's had some studs come through. Is
Yeah,
is Connecticut soccer as a whole pretty solid in your opinion?
it's pretty solid. It's pretty legit. And so some of those alumni I was talking about were, I think, in the late 80s, mid to late 80s. And um, Lyle Yorks is one of them. And he's now a soccer agent for a lot of professional athletes like Tyler Adams and I think even Clint Dempsey. And maybe he hasn't, been the sole manager, but he's been in the company and he's met them and he's worked with them. So he's doing great. He's a stud now, and people like him, and he's actually said this recently in a podcast, is that he might not have played for E.O. Smith back in the 80s if they had MLS academies and teams that compete in the MLS next. He might have been playing for one of those teams. But we've definitely had a good run. Connecticut has produced some of those talents, and it's hard to compare, I think, from state to state. um, but we do have those pockets. And then I'm coaching for Oakwood Soccer Academy, which competes in the MLS next. And we had a player get drafted 3 or 4 years ago to, shoot, I forgot what team, but now he's at the Pittsburgh Riverhounds in the USL. And so he's kind of climbing the ropes there, and he might have a chance. So they'll produce some draftees, once in a while, and
Yeah.
and probably not at the same frequency as New York or Texas or places like that. But you'll find some pockets where it's pretty competitive.
What's the age group that you're with at Oakwood?
So that was the club team I told you I just started with right now, because really just started a month or two ago. I did a lot of camps in the summer, and I've known the staff for much longer. I played men's league at their facility, but I just kind of started. So right now he's just plugging me in to help with the groups of four training. And tonight I coached the 2012s, so U8,
Oh,
and
it's
that's
just
where
a
I'm
little
at
one.
now. But that club as a whole, they'll go to tournaments, they'll go to Florida, they'll compete. They'll stand up and they'll beat the New England Revolution Academy, and they'll go toe to toe with the New York Red Bull Academy. And so they got those big clubs on their schedule, and they're right there neck and neck with them for sure.
That's awesome. Is there like
Yeah.
it's an actual expecting the weather right now is like is there a lot of snow and freezing cold? So it's all indoor.
Oh, yeah, all indoor. I think it's 29 degrees out right now or something like that. But the snow somehow just melted from recently. But yeah, we're indoors.
So U8, so you are spanning all over the place. It seems like
Oh yeah.
you've got your hands in all these different little that's so cool because you have the middle school like teaching and coaching experience, you've done high school, you've played at a high level at Division 3 soccer. Uh, it's so cool. Does it change depending like the age groups that you have in those pods of four? Sometimes like you go in and it might not be the U8s next time.
Yeah, yeah. Right now, it'll change, and I'm being plugged in to help out. But my mentality is the teacher for PE. You get certified K to 12, and so you go through college and you go through your clinical experiences. At a multitude of ranges, and my mom was a teacher, and so it's kind of in me, just like instructing and talking to and adjusting. So it is fun to do the different ages, because like you can say, all right, jump over that line 100 times, they're like, okay. And then like you said, you go to high school, and then sometimes they need a kick in the rear side to really get going. But it's fun doing it all. I just love people and I love coaching, and it doesn't matter where I'm at pretty much.
I think it's awesome that it seems like you're constantly trying to put yourself in spots to have an experience coaching wise. be it back in
Yeah.
the day when you said, "Hey, I'll help out," you're always like seeking those opportunities, what I think is really cool because this experience through this Oakwood, which sounds like they're, like you said, very competitive club, is only going to make you a better coach, which therefore then helps you at EO Smith.
Pretty much. Yep. Absolutely the idea behind it. And like you said, I am always looking for those opportunities. And just like me and you, it worked out great.
Yeah, I hear you. We had to bounce around a few days, and because
Yeah.
you're a busy man with all these trainings. So how often are you training right now with the club?
So right now, twice a week. And then before some like vacation stuff, mixed in
Yeah, right
with
on.
the schedule. But twice a week right now. And then I think that's what they'll do and have games on the weekend. And then sometimes hopefully you got a home game, but if not, you're driving to New York or New Jersey or wherever to go compete.
That's awesome. So their league plays in neighboring states as well.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of travel and that's why sometimes they have a hard time getting coaches. Because you got to get people, young like me. I don't have a family yet,
Yeah.
um, who is willing to go. But like you said, it's kind of a give and take, and I'm hoping to just learn a lot. I already have learned a lot, to be honest, from the coaches. I'm just around,
I think it's awesome just hearing like just from the beginning of our conversation to now the the experience of like 0 and 16 and like your rival writing crap on the field and then kind of
Yeah,
you figuring out that hey, I want to make more of this and then having an awesome experience at college with a great coach and now you end up kind of bookend with another great coach that's now leading you to the coaching realm and all that stuff. It's so freaking cool to go from like pretty much the bottom to now you're in it's like a high level
that's
competitive type thing.
thank you. Yeah, it's fun, man. That's what it's about. I love doing it, and it's enjoyable, and I love putting myself in those positions. And that's what you got to do. You got to seek out those opportunities for yourself, because anyone can do it if you're willing to grow and learn and network and just have fun.
For what, any of your high school players to say, "Hey, coach, I'm thinking about playing at the college level." What are some of the things that you would say? Because, like you said, your journey was, um, not atypical, or I don't even know what typical is anymore. I think people, if I
Yeah,
talk to other people, they have say similar things like, "Yeah, it was June when I found out," or I know teachers get
yeah,
their
yeah,
job in August and they teach the next week and stuff. But what would be
yeah.
something you would say like, "Hey, this is something you got to prepare for the difference between maybe high school and the jump to college," or what things would help them make that transition?
Yeah. Going back to the recruiting thing, I do have kids right now, navigating that landscape, and that's why I tell them is you got to advocate for yourself. You got to seek out. You got to find the school you like, and then you have to contact that coach, and have a meaningful connection. Call them on the phone. Don't just send them an email with the highlights as your first introduction. But to get ready to make that jump, um, you got to be competitive, and you got to love it, and you got to know you want to do it. And the kids at my high school that I'm thinking of now check all those boxes, and they do love the game, and they are competitive, and it's something they want, and they'll be able to accomplish. And I hope they had a similar experience. I hope they will have a similar experience to mine, where you grow and you learn, and you have a cool experience they can look back on and tap from the connections I made and the people I learned from. But for the jump, yeah, most of them can make that jump physically. Weight training will be part of that. That's another thing that my coach was big on. Um, and even if you're not the biggest guy, you still just have to be physical. You have to be able to compete. So the kids I'm thinking of, the schools that they're thinking about going to, the level of tactics and the level of skill won't be that big of a jump. I don't think anyone has to make wholesale changes to be able to compete at that level. So more on the just maturity side and have it being a right fit.
The one thing I heard, and I love it, is you said, "Look, if you're going to do it, you got to be all in. Like, go and
Yeah,
crush it, compete, love it, um, love the experience, take as much from it." Like you said, from your experience, like, look, I went into it and just went all in, and
Mhm.
came of it, and now it puts you to where you're at now. I think that's awesome, and they have a huge, um, resource having you going through that, plus being in the state of Connecticut for it sounds like your entire life. Therefore,
Yeah,
you've got some connections to us, which is awesome for those kids. I think that is sweet. Um,
yeah, thank you.
but
Appreciate it.
Mike, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. This thing has been awesome. Uh, if others want to connect with you, what's a good way to kind of keep up and check in on EO Smith and what Mike's doing and what's Oakwood Soccer doing and all those types of things?
For sure. You can Google Oakwood, Oakwood Soccer Academy in Connecticut, Glassmere, Connecticut. That'll pop up. In the process of getting an Instagram and a Twitter for the EO Smith account, so I don't have one of those yet for the soccer side. You can check out their high school one, but I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. That's how we connected. And then search my name, and I can spell that for you. So it's Mike Radlbeck, Radlbeck. Hit me up on either one of those, and eventually you'll be led to the new soccer, EO Smith Soccer Instagram, which we're gonna take over next. So be on the lookout.
That's awesome. And I'll also put in the notes, and everybody that follows me on Twitter and Instagram and all the other social stuff that I put out, I'll put all his info down so you can connect with him. This was another opportunity for me to kind of chat with another coach that's gone through some really cool, ups and downs. It ain't always pretty, but I think tons of value from the stuff that you said. I can't wait for people to watch and listen, and I'm excited to stay
Yeah,
connected and see where you head. With
thank
that.
you.
So I'll wrap up real quick. Hey, this is Kieran with Coach's Corner Chats, and I'm out. Peace.